Hi, this is TK Kugler from Wasabi Venture Sports, and we have a great webinar this evening. Thanks for everybody for coming. We're going to be talking to the field manager of the Lafayette Aviators. And with that, I will get out of the way for my friend and co-founder of Wasabi Venture Sports, Jeff Musgrove. And it's your
All right.
show, Jeff.
Thank you. I always wanted my own morning radio show. So Jamie, bear with me because I'm going to actually use this as like a pretend as if I have a drive time talk show. So,
Yeah.
but no, listen, appreciate you joining. Welcome to our world. I mean, the aviators and kind of the wasabi world, us on the ownership side. And this is what we try to do, Jamie. One of the things we try to do is really give folks exposure, right, to more than just the ability to be a part of the team from an ownership standpoint, but really to present the opportunities for them to kind of learn a little bit about collegiate summer league baseball. Because I think, at least me, the more I'm around it, the more I realize how unique it is in so many ways, right? And I think with somebody with your background, it's even more interesting, right? Because you have kind of all the different pieces, player, coaching at a high level like at Purdue, and then all the experience here. So just I think this is a great opportunity. What we do is we just go. I'll ask you some questions, and then what we do is we ask anybody who's got anything. They'll throw it into the chat, and I'll try to weave those questions in as we go along. So thanks for joining, and let's get going. So just for folks, I'm always interested in kind of the journey, right, for you, the journey in baseball, because that has its own roller coaster, right? And then how the journey in baseball then has you move into coaching, and then how that ultimately has you coaching the Lafayette Aviators in the Prospect League.
Yeah, right. It's a good question. I actually gave a talk to the local Harrison High School baseball program in their first pitch dinner on Saturday night. And that's kind of one of the things I went through, actually. I grew up in Logansport, Indiana, about 55 minutes from Lafayette. And when I grew up, we back then, that was before travel ball, right? That's showing my age a little bit, but there was no travel baseball. So we played in a local little league. We played when I was 9. It was 9 through 12. So I was a 9-year-old playing against 12-year-olds, which was definitely a challenge, right? You don't see that much anymore as far as how they separate the ages, So I did that, and the class I was in, I graduated high school in 1991, and the class that we had in Logansport was very, very talented. I didn't spend my entire high school career there. We moved when I was a freshman. We left Logansport, but we ended up having seven of us in that one class at a school of about 1,300 kids. One went to Texas A&M, one went to Iowa State, one went to Evansville, one went to Purdue, and 3 of us, myself included, went to junior college to play college baseball. So end all be all, there was 3 of us that ended up getting drafted in the top 15 rounds, 3 of us. So you can just kind of get an idea of from 9 years old till I was about 14, I had the pleasure of and being pushed and being able to play against really good players ever since I was at a young age. And then we moved here locally around the Lafayette area, went to Parkland Junior College in Champaign, Illinois. Went there as a 2-way player. I quickly found out that spring that I'm not a 2-way player. You face some of those dudes that are 6'5", 6'6", and they're throwing gas at you, and you see it blur by you. You figure out you can't hit at this level. It's kind of like, if you jump in the deep end, you can't get back up. You're just drowning. Well, I was drowning at the plate, but I had a lot of confidence in pitching. So I ended up pitching the rest of the spring. 4 of us got drafted that year from Parkland College, which was the most of any college in the entire country in 1992. You're talking SEC schools, you're talking Pac-12, you're talking West Coast, all those power conferences. We had the most. So again, being around really, really good players. we all four signed. Um, you know, three of us four made it to the big leagues, and you're looking at the one that didn't. Right? I had a decent minor league career, had some really good experiences. But I think the coaching part of it, honestly, probably came back when I was in high school. I was a high school football player, loved football. Kind of learned how to. I was a quarterback. Kind of learned how to be a leader at that point, a little bit, and then that just kind of resonated with me on maybe I want to be a coach when I get done playing, and it's just kind of rolled from there. So that was the player part of it. The coaching part of it, when I got released by the Cardinals, I went into being a high school head coach right away. I hadn't even been an assistant, hadn't coached any baseball. Did that for a couple years. Was doing lessons and camps at a local training facility here in Lafayette. And then from there, I went to Parkland, back to Parkland to be an assistant. Went to the University of Wisconsin-Platteville to be assistant, and then became the head coach there for 5 years. And then I got the pitching coach job at Purdue and was there for a few years. So that's kind of the short end of it, but it's definitely been a journey.
That's incredible. Yeah, I mean, the story about all the people from from there being drafted is almost impossible if you think about it statistically, right? So, so I'm going to move into what I talk about a lot, because I'm always fascinated by the recruiting aspect of it, as you put together a team. But I'm actually going to, because of you and your background and the Aviators, I'm going to take it. The first two questions are going to be a little different than I think I normally would ask a manager. So you have some history with the Prospect League.
Yes.
Having already been a manager in this league. So I guess that's really where I want to start. My first question is, how much does the league itself, right, and the strength of the league and the quality of the league, how much is that a draw for players to just want to go into the Prospect League and then, find a team in the Prospect League?
It's huge. I mean, we'll probably get into the specifics of the roster, but by about the end of September, I was basically done. Other than finding a few more pitchers, I was basically done with our roster.
Wow.
Because between my contacts, kids wanting to play in the Prospect League, and especially Lafayette, we treat our players very well, and it's a great place to play. We have the best fans in the league. We have the best, front office in the league. That word spreads very fast. So when I took the job, before the first year, it was a little more challenging, I guess, to fill the roster. But I still probably have a list of probably 40, 50 kids that are on my, waiting list, that if we have roster changes, I can give them a call and they might join us. But, between my connections and kids knowing about Lafayette Prospect League, it's a pretty big deal right now. And we keep getting better, I think, from the years that I was in Danville to now. It's changed drastically when it comes to recruiting.
Yeah. So, that you led me to my next question, right? And again, I think for those who've had exposure to the stadium at Lafayette, and for those who have not been to a stadium like Lafayette, I mean, that alone also has to be a draw for the kids. Is that right?
Without doubt, because these kids know each other. They play travel ball against each other or with each other, and then they kind of go their separate ways to college and all those type of things. But I have several guys and friends of mine that still coach in the league, or I've coached against them previously, and every one of them tell me that Lafayette is their most favorite road trip of the year, because we have great fans. It's a great facility. It's very scenic. Our fans understand baseball, which you don't get that everywhere. You really don't, unfortunately. But yes, it's got a really good reputation. It's only growing.
Yeah. So, and that I think that's one of the things that's so special about Lafayette, right? Is it really has all of the pieces, and which kind of leads me to another offshoot question around recruiting, because you've kind of hit the the benefits of it being the prospect league, the benefits of it being Lafayette. And then you've started to get into a little bit of your, your framework, right? Which is, it's somewhat, players that you want, so you're out there recruiting them, and then somewhat it's demand, right? With
Yeah.
people that want in. But then there's another element of it I'm fascinated by too, which is, how do you decide year to year who you want to keep? And
Yeah.
how does that play into the overall strategy?
Okay, so I first start through my network of connections of either guys that have um, played for me, I've coached with, coached against, just basically guys I know I can trust. That's where I
Mhm.
start. Now,
Okay.
in the meantime, I'm still getting emails, phone calls, texts from other college coaches, from kids directly that are interested in playing in Lafayette. But I think to continue to build our roster and spread it out throughout the country, I need to start with the network that I have, and then
Mhm.
we go from there, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of times where I just start building a list in a spreadsheet, and then I start asking coaches questions. I call the kids and talk to them a couple times, try to get a feel for them. You know what, Jeff? Google is a great thing. It really does. You type in the kid's name and you put baseball behind it, and you can find about anything you want. You can find film of them pitching or hitting, fielding. I mean, it's all out there, right? And
Yeah.
then you just have to ask some questions to their coaches. Are they a good student? What kind of kid are they off the field? Am I going to have any problems? Which typically, when kids are recommended to you, they're good
Yeah.
students. They're good kids. They're not going to cause you any problems. But some of the kids that just kind of reach out, or a coach reach out to you, you just kind of got to. I have, for my peace of mind, I have to do a Google search, look up some stats. Even with some
Sure.
of the incoming guys that are just finishing their freshman year, I want to see what their high school was like.
Yeah. Yeah. So we just got a question that is a good one from Bob on our side. So, and you kind of alluded to this, but I mean, just how wide is the net cast on recruiting? I mean, what is the player that you have this season that's going to be, coming from the furthest away from Lafayette, Indiana? Do you know?
Well, yeah, it's coast to coast. I mean, it really
Okay.
is. We have kids from 13 different states this year.
Okay.
Okay, we have a kid from Santa Barbara, California, coming in, who plays at Pepperdine. We have a kid from San Jose, California, that actually plays at Northern Kentucky. He's coming in. We have a kid from the Phoenix, Arizona area, who plays at Central Arizona Community College, all the way to South Texas, in Temple, Texas, at Temple Community College, down to Bradenton, Florida. We have a very interesting pitcher coming in who has actually spent his freshman year at the University of Miami, and now he's at a junior college, and he's going to come to us this summer, getting recruited again by the ACC schools. Whatever happened at Miami, I don't know. But all the way to Wisconsin. We have kids from Illinois. We have 14 Indiana kids, actually, 8 local kids that are within 30 minutes of Lafayette that are really good players. So it's basically coast to coast. We had a couple kids from Pennsylvania last year. We haven't hit the Northeast yet, although we did have some inquiries last year and this year from kids up in the Massachusetts, Connecticut area, but we just
Yeah.
haven't been able to find a spot for them yet.
Okay. Cool. So, as you kind of go in, I guess I have kind of two questions, because I want to transition now into the kind of the player side, right? So now we've built a roster, right? And now it's time, right? And the kids are going to show up, and I really have two different questions. But I'll ask the longer term one first. So, and again, for folks, that don't understand collegiate summer league baseball, the kids are playing college ball. They show up. They have basically what, an intense 10 or so weeks, right? I mean, it all just happens in
Yeah.
10 weeks. So, given the fact that you only have 10 weeks, so I'm going to ask both questions, the front end of the question and the back end of the question. So the front end is, these kids show up a couple days before the season starts. How do
Yes.
you put the team together? And I know you don't have it fully put together, but how do you in those couple days really not only make sure you understand the team and who's going to start and who's going to play where, but how do you create the ability for the players to effectively play together in such a short period of time?
Yeah, that's the tricky part of it. I think the first thing that I'm doing it. I was actually on a live stats game with a couple of our players that are playing against each other before we got on this call, and I'm just watching them anytime I can. Monday is a big day for me. I go check all the stats. I check, if they're a position player, I want to see where they're hitting in the lineup. Right? If they're a pitcher, I want to see are they starting? Are they coming in relief? If they are coming in relief, are they coming in the back end? Or are they coming in the middle? So that way, before they get to me, we at least have a little bit of a feel for what they're doing for their college, what role they're playing there, and then we kind of go from there. So that's not an exact science, but at least you have an idea. Plus, I've talked to these guys multiple times, and then you also follow them. Some of them you can watch on your computer every weekend if you want, and I tune in to that. If I'm not watching my own son, I'm watching the incoming guys.
Yeah. Okay. That's actually fascinating. So then, the other side of that question is, you've got 10 weeks, right, to build a bond and a trust with these kids, with you and the coaching staff, that really, I mean, can have a absolute lasting impression, right? And a direct impact on the trajectory of their future in baseball. So, what is it culturally, right? I mean, what is it that you say, I've got 10 weeks. What are the couple things? It's like, I got 10 weeks to do these three things that I know are going to make these kids successful.
From the very beginning, they don't all come in at the same time, but we do have an initial first team meeting where the majority of them are there. And I set the expectations. This is what our schedule is going to be. This is what we expect out of our practices. This is what we expect everything to look like when the game starts. Bench jockeying. We're going to focus on us, right? And then we'll start from there. I'll meet with every kid individually, whether it be a Zoom call before they get to me or when they get to town, and then we'll have a couple of days of practice, right? And I think setting the tone right away, one with the team meeting, which I think is very important, to set expectations and to make sure that they fully understand what I, as the field manager and our assistant coaches, expect out of them on a daily basis. And then, you really got to be organized and give them some food for thought when you have those first few practices. You got to gain their trust by, this is how organized we're going to be in our practices. So I think once you do that, plus, it's a short 10 weeks, but it's full of all games and practices. We play 60 games in 67 days this summer. It's a day-to-day checking in on guys. When guys are struggling, when they're doing well, but you still need to just have a connection somewhere. It might be just a handshake every day with them. Hey, how are you doing today? How's your arm feel? Just trying to at least have a small conversation with each player on a daily basis.
Love it. Love it. All right. We have two more questions that come in.
Sure.
This one's really interesting, Thomas Johnson. So from a player standpoint, and, having been a player yourself. So from a player standpoint, when do they know to commit to just playing baseball versus trying to play multiple sports?
I think that comes in the middle of their high school years. I think it does, especially, and I hope I'm answering the question for this gentleman, is when you're one of these guys that are playing collegiate baseball and you're going to a summer league like the Prospect League, you've probably figured that out somewhere around your junior year. That's for some. But I also believe that there's some guys that are such good athletes that they'll be 3-sport guys, right? I mean, they'll do it all. We have a local kid that's coming in. He played all 3 sports. He's a pitcher, right? I love that. But that's not going to be the case for all of them. But I do think, that part of it is as far as playing a different sport, it's really tough anymore. And you kind of almost got to be a freak athlete to be able to do it. I think that happens somewhere around high school or after high school. This kid was a 3-sport athlete. Actually, we have two really, really good quarterbacks, high school quarterbacks that were actually recruited as quarterbacks that are freshman pitchers at their school.
Interesting.
And they were three-sport athletes, and they're tremendous, right? They're just kind of buried behind some older guys at their school. But, if and that's one of the questions that I asked the players when I first interviewed them, what'd you do in high school? And not that I, favor the guys. I mean, if you can play baseball and you're good, you have a great attitude, you're a good student. I'm definitely interested. But if you're a three-sport athlete that has those other qualities, it's automatic almost.
Yeah. No, it's a great way to put it. So another question came in, and I'm sure that, I'm sure this happens. So do the college coaches ever talk to you about, restricting a pitcher's innings or the players' positions? Like how does that go into, the feedback from them, and then how that plays into the overall strategy with the kid during the summer?
Yes, mainly with the pitching. That's the biggest part of it. Actually, we have two kids coming from Northern Kentucky University. One was a kid from San Jose. He's going to pitch for the first half of the season. And then they're also, to replace him, they're courteous enough to send us another pitcher to replace him for the second half. Now, last year, we had 5 guys on inning limits, and we tried to structure that to where they can stay the entire summer. Doesn't always work out that way. But in regards to pitchers, that's kind of how it goes. And that's been around for a long time. That's not something new. As far as position players go, I try to make sure that we have about 5 to 6 infielders, 4 to 5 outfielders, and then sometimes you'll get guys that can go and do both, right? So that almost eliminates a roster spot at times. Not always, but that's usually communicated through the coach that contacts me, or if a kid contacts me directly, I'll contact the coach and say, hey, so-and-so's reached out. They say they're an outfielder. Is that all they play, or what's their expectations? Or do you even want them to come play? Some coaches already have plans for certain guys. So I just got to communicate with the coaches. But yeah, that's usually if you're a third baseman, you're going to be a third baseman or a first baseman. You can usually play both. You're a middle infielder, you can probably play second, short, and third. We have one kid come from Pepperdine that can play all 4 and the outfield. So we'll just have to see how we work him in the lineup.
Yeah, that's a good problem to have.
Yes.
So my sources tell me your son plays on the team.
Yes, he does.
So give us a little bit of perspective, right? What it's like to just not only have your son playing baseball at that level, but then have the opportunity to coach him.
It's great. And a funny story, Jeff, is last summer when I got the job, I talked to Brooks and I said, hey, I'll have a roster spot if you want it, but you need to decide within a certain timeline, like I tell every other kid that I talk to. He decided he did not want to play for Dad last summer. So he goes up to Wisconsin and plays in Wisconsin. And about mid-season, we were basically losing all 3 of our catchers because they were injured. So I called Brooks and said, hey, if you want to come down to Lafayette, here's another opportunity. He jumped on the opportunity to come back home and play for the second half. And then he's, obviously re-signed with us, and he's going to play with us this summer. And I coached my son from the time he was 8 in travel ball to the time he was 17. So I'm guessing that contributed to his decisions beginning last summer, right?
Okay.
Once he got to Lafayette at the midpoint, and he, saw how I managed things, and it wasn't travel baseball, it was college baseball, and you're going to be treated just like everybody else. Not that I didn't do that before, but he's on his own. I mean, yeah, you're going to sleep in your same bedroom, but you're one of those. When we're at Loeb Stadium, we're on the road. You are an aviator, right? I think he liked that, and he obviously loves how the organization is ran. So, and for a dad, it's special.
Yeah, that's incredible. What a cool story. Because really you get to go on the journey together. So we had a question come through because we have a relatively strong contingent of folks, including me, from Baltimore. So the obvious question is, was he named for Brooks Robinson?
Yes, he was,
Well,
without question.
you
short story.
Your popularity just went through the roof. So no matter, just keep going, buddy. Keep going.
when I was like in 6th or 7th grade, I can't remember. We got to pick any, short essay that we wanted to write, do it on anything. And, just growing up, I'd known of Brooks Robinson, was able to kind of watch some of his stuff, and, he was getting older at that point, but he was still around on TV, highlights of him. And I just loved the name Brooks. So it was natural when we knew we were going to have our first boy. And I'm like, well, we got to name him Brooks after Brooks Robinson. He's third baseman. My son's a catcher, but he does play a little infield. But yeah, it's a baseball name. It's the best baseball name ever.
All right. I love it. Okay. You have won some friends here on that one. So, just the other part of the player side, I guess, is, well, actually, I'd say it's the other part of the player side, but then it's part of what I love most about the community and the player and community bond, right? And where I'm heading on this is the host families, right?
Yeah.
So can you just talk a little bit about that? I mean, about just how you see the impact to the kids having the right host family, and then to the host family going through that experience, and kind of how all that plays into the community.
It's huge. I mean, it's probably one of the most important things in the dynamics of what we do in college summer baseball. Because one, when you put a college baseball player in a home, that family automatically becomes a part of the team right away, right? And a funny story, before I go on, I just about 2 weeks ago had been texting with one of my former players that I had in Danville in 2005, Chuck Sinlinger, he was a second baseman at Long Beach State. And he was that summer was after his junior year at Long Beach State. And so he went into his senior year, nothing happened with pro ball. So he went out to the real world, and we were texting back and forth, and he sent me a text, said, "You know what, Coach, I still have contact with my host family in Danville, Illinois." And it didn't surprise me, but I was just amazed. I'm like, so many people could have such a great experience hosting a college baseball player, and they're all going to be good kids. And if they're not, we'll take care of it. But I've never had an issue with a kid, and going into my 6th year in college summer baseball, we've had a real issue with the host family, with the kid. It's a matter of, just providing a bedroom, providing a bathroom with a shower, because honestly, they're not there a whole lot, but they're going to be there enough that you get to know them really well. And you'll stay in touch with these boys, these kids, these college players for a really, really, really long time. And Chuck's story is not the first one. I mean, I still talk to guys from the 2006 to 2005 teams that I had, the 2012, 2013. Just every once in a while, somebody will pop in, or I'll pop in on them. And more times than not, Jeff, they talk about their host family. They connected, because when the host family can come and watch basically their son for the summer, right, and play in front of really good crowds, perform really well, and knowing that they're going to leave here soon, but there's still going to be a connection, right? Yeah. And I think that's really special. And like I said, I think families with empty nesters, families with young kids could really benefit from having a college baseball player for a summer. And they're all good kids. They've gotten into college. They're playing ball. They're busy. Their time management's good. These guys are gonna. We report about 3:30 every day. Our game gets done about 10:30 or 11 after they eat. Some of them might go out and eat more after the game, but they're going to be home to their host family around 11:30. They're going to get up in the morning. They're going to go to the YMCA and lift. They're probably going to go back to the host family and have lunch, or go out to lunch with the rest of the players. And then they might lounge around for a couple hours in the afternoon. Then they're back at the ballpark. So I guess my biggest message to prospective host families, they're not taking over your house. They're going to be there for a few hours. They're going to sleep, but they've got work to do. They have training to do. They have practice. They have games. We have road trips, right? So I think one of maybe of the fears of host families is that you got a kid that's just laying around the couch all the time. Well, no, we are going to keep them busy, and they're going to have plenty of work to do. That you'll get to know them very well, but they're not going to take over.
Perfect. Well, let me tell you, as you know, we're recording this and we distribute it out. So thank you, because you just did the best infomercial for why to be a host family we could have
Well,
possibly asked for. So thank you. And really, I mean, I think you're bringing up the real point, right? It really is. I mean, it has so many benefits on both sides, right? It ties a family to a player in there, and then it also, for the player, it gives them a family and someone to come see them when they're not. So the bond has got to be there, right? Because they're
yeah.
both kind of filling a gap. So, all right. So I have just one more question, and it'll be kind of prospect league and then Aviator. So, as you look at the 2024 season coming up, so, talk a little bit, to the extent you can, talk a little bit about what you see or know about the overall prospect league, and then bring it down to kind of what your hopes, dreams, and expectations are for the Aviators, and what signifies success for you, right? Because it oftentimes is more than just record, but what are those things you're looking at for 2024?
Well, I think we've got really good field managers in our league that have really good experience. I really do. And for the most part, everybody's pretty organized. We get along really well as field managers. I haven't met them all, but we've been on calls like this before. I really think our field managers have the best interest of our players in this league. We have great venues to play in. The competition has always been good, even in the previous days in Danville. The competition's always been great. The crowds have always been good. And as far as my expectation of this ball club, we're probably more athletic than what we were last year. We have a couple guys that hit the ball at the ballpark, but not as many. But we have a lot of really good athletes that should hit for high averages, steal a lot of bases. Our pitching staff is very diverse with 16 right-handed pitchers, 6 lefties that will be really fun to watch in lefty-lefty matchups, which I love to do. And again, we have almost covered coast to coast with our roster construction, right? We've got kids from California, Arizona, as far east as East Tennessee. So, we're starting to get a little bit wider in our reach, which, if I continue to do this, which I want to, as long as everybody will keep me around, I want to stretch that, because it's really neat. And I'll tell you a funny story. One year in Danville, it was either 05 or 06, might have been 06. We got delayed and canceled one night, and we had some kids from Southern California. Jeff, they'd never seen lightning before. And watch this storm come in from the west, and to see those guys at the top of the stadium looking over the top underneath the roof and looking at their faces when they saw lightning was just a moment. Something that you'll never probably see again, unless we get some guys in California, we get a lightning delay or something. But
Right.
Getting guys from Indiana, California, Arizona, Texas, Florida, Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, Wisconsin. I'm sure I'm missing Colorado. Got a kid coming in, but just to see all these, almost the entire country with kids coming from different spots, and then seeing them mesh and get along, and all of a sudden you see them leaving the locker room together. You'll see a guy from California and Tennessee leave together to go have dinner or whatever it may be. That's a really fun part of summer collegiate baseball if you can make it happen.
Perfect. Great. All right. Well, last chance, anybody for questions? TK, I don't know if you have anything, but I don't see any more questions in the chat. So
Yeah, I had a quick question, Jamie, and I actually don't know the answer to this. I probably should, but I don't. What's your day job when you're not coaching?
Yeah, I'm a teacher.
Okay.
I teach at a school about 45 minutes from my house. I actually teach junior high weight training, which is one of the few in the state of Indiana that actually has a junior high weight training program. So we have our own weight room. I have my own office in the weight room. There's glasses, around. So if I'm in my office, I can watch the kids. But no, I teach weight training at a junior high and love it. I've been in education for about 16, 17 years since I left Purdue. That's what I went into. Um, and I love my day job, and it's perfect for me to be able to fit with the Aviators because I live 20 minutes from Loeb Stadium. I live 40 minutes from my job. I have my summers off because I am a teacher, and it works perfect.
Yeah. I coached for 20 some years at the high school and college level. You have the essence of a coach. You could, if I didn't know you, I would know you were a coach just instantly. You have there's a certain presence that most coaches have, and you bring that through. And I did, spent most of my life around coaches, so I like it. So
I appreciate that. I've heard that before, but that's the highest compliment I think you can give a coach right there.
I think 100%. So that's all I had, Jeff.
All right. Well, listen, I just want to thank everybody. And again, Jamie, on behalf of Wasabi Sports Management, thank you. Thank everybody for joining us, and have a good night. We'll make this available and we'll continue these conversations. Have a
Sounds
night.
good. Time.
All right. Thanks.
See ya. Take care, Jay.